Okay, so welcome to session 3 of the Green Social Prescribing Training for Link Workers. We have, in the previous sessions, covered a lot about what nature connection is, some simple tips of how to develop your own meaningful practice of nature connection. We've looked a bit about how a strong connection to nature can influence a person's well-being, and we've begun to look at what provision might be around locally that you as social prescribing practitioners could signpost your patients to. And today's session we're going to try and bring it all together, and so as always these sessions are yours to make the most of. And you can ask any questions. If I don't know the answer, I can go away and find out. And really as much participation as possible will make it a really positive session. I can see that some people have already had a go at looking at the Padlet that we have made together. On the Padlet, there's lots of different resources, all to do with green social prescribing. There's information about some of the research papers to do with how nature connection and well-being are linked. There's practical examples of things that you can do with your patients, or you could signpost them to, like the mini wild wellbeing seasonal magazines, which it doesn't matter if you're not signposting to a Wild at Heart group as such. It just sets the scene about how people can find really simple, interesting but low cost ways to have that connection with nature. There are always the Wild at Heart web pages, which have lots of information, but especially useful for you might be the monthly nature activity packs, which you can download and send as a file, or you could print out to support your patients. And then there is the Wild at Heart Facebook page, which is a great resource for you to connect to. You could offer it and show it to any patients you're working with, but you could also use it to find out and keep in touch with the Wild at Heart team and the wider Sheffield and Rotherham Wildlife Trust. So as always, we're going to try and get the most out of these sessions. We really understand that these sessions ideally would be face-to-face in a lovely nature setting, perhaps in a local park, but we're online at the moment, so we will make the best of it we can. And there's some things we can all do to try and help the session go as well as possible. So we can ask questions, try and contribute to the session in a way that you feel comfortable to. We all have different opinions and views and life experiences, so we can approach each other with an open mind, but we can also be kind, because we may well have differing views, but we can still discuss it and chat about them and find out about each other's views. And then if you want to, the Padlet is going to be there for you long term. You can use it to gather resources to enhance your own practice, and you can share what you try out with your colleagues, because often if you're trying something out, especially if you're hesitant about it, a colleague might support you, but just the fact that you're trying it out might inspire your colleague to give it a go. So you can share with your colleagues, and you can also look at the recordings, which will be online on the ICS website shortly. So today we're going to do about play in adults and the importance of play and those joyous moments in nature, and how we can link playful moments to enhance our connection with nature, and how we might go about making referrals to different organisations, and some of the information that we can provide to the green prescribing opportunities that might help the patient have a better experience and know what to expect. And then at the end, we'll just have a look at how you can carry forward some ideas about nature connectedness in your own practice, and then if you were interested in taking it further, a few next steps for you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment, and do you remember last week we offered an activity to you to try, which was to practice noticing your 3 good things in nature, but to take it a step further and try and introduce that idea to somebody else. It might be a family member, a colleague, a friend. And I was curious to know if anyone had tried it out. So feel free to let me know, pop your hand up, or just say if you tried anything out.
Jenny, I've just been on to phone to a patient, and that was the main thing I was talking to about 3 good things in nature. So he's going to report back to me. So I think it's very, very valuable. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Brilliant. And how did you find it? You know, introducing that concept to your patient. Were you hesitant, or were you feeling good?
Not at all, because I do it on a regular basis. I walk to work and I walk down canal, so I'm always looking out, and I see things and think, oh yeah, that's amazing. So it just seems to come natural, but I never thought about introducing it, to patients. So yeah, it's definitely worthwhile.
And that's brilliant. If you're passionate about nature or find that niche of nature which you really enjoy, then it becomes quite easy to talk to somebody else about that and share it with them. It doesn't feel too much of a stretch. But for some people, it might be a completely new concept, and you can just try out things in very small ways to build your confidence. So well done, Stephen. Thank you for sharing. Has anybody else tried anything out this week, either just noticing those 3 good things, or introduced it to anybody?
I would like to say that overall, obviously I'm part of a friends group. We're not actively engaged in social prescribing. We want to be.
Yep.
But something that I've had to take on board for myself is, because I've got a long interest in nature. I've learned so much the last couple of years, that birds I didn't know existed, and insects and everything. But I am one of these. I like to know what it's called, and I like to instruct.
Yep.
And I think it's something I've had to understand, is that actually doesn't matter.
Yeah, or it comes second, maybe.
Yes, yeah, and I found that very useful. And yeah, you don't want to alienate people by thinking they're taking a class. It's just something to see and enjoy. And on that note, this morning, on a piece of shriveled up St John's Wort branch, I've seen 3 ladybirds. So that was my 3.
Wow.
All together.
So that's a real sign of spring, isn't it? That the small insects are waking up. Really good. So, and Fiona, that's really good for you to say. You're obviously keen at nature, various species, but for somebody else, just noticing the ladybirds, they might recognize it as a ladybird, but it doesn't matter if they do or don't. It's just noticing, and you spending that moment talking to that person about it. That's where whatever we draw our attention to and we focus on, that's where the well-being happens.
Yeah, I say for me, I'd want to know, but that's not important. That might be my thing. It's not necessarily.
Exactly right. Yeah. Very good, Fiona. Yeah. Brilliant. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
Yes, it's Helen here. Can I please share?
Of course you can.
I was out with our local Natural History Society. One of our members is a keen bird watcher, had set up telescopes at Morecambe Bay last week. It was really high tide. So all of us went along because we're keen birders and know some of our birds, but some of us don't. So it's just that collective group of interested people in birds, and just seeing the shapes and forms as the tide was coming in, and seeing them fly off and then come in, and seeing 9 snipe lift off as the tide came off the salt marsh was amazing. And some people knew what the birds were, some didn't, but it was just such a collective group of people telling you what the bird was and how you can identify it.
And it's the immersive, being at the seaside.
It was amazing. The high tide coming in, and right in the distance there were like murmurations of dunlin or not. It didn't matter what they were. It didn't matter.
But you were noticing it. If you
were noticing it, and everybody just had a buzz after 2 hours, and that's what it's about,
Yep.
isn't it?
Fantastic. So
That
that's
was
so good.
great.
You had a good experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I rather unsuccessfully tried to put a picture up, but I live down in Kelham, which is quite an urban landscape, and last year they planted some trees in the street, and within a week a goldfinch had made its nest, and I just noticed the other day, it's been there all year, it is still there, launched in between it's anonymous on the padlet, but the nest is still there.
Oh,
and we've
that's
had
what it
snow.
is. I said, is it an owl? Because I couldn't quite see it in detail.
And we had 3 baby birds last year, and we're hoping that they're going to come back. But I just noticed, despite all the high winds and the rain and the snow,
it's still lodged in there.
has, and as you can see, the tree is completely bare.
Yeah.
It is still intact. So
And isn't
we're
that
hoping.
an amazing feat of architecture, almost natural architecture, so that it's stayed there all this time. Wonderful. Thanks, Yvonne. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to share, or we can move on? Lovely. So you can always say something again if you think of it. I'll share my.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've been doing
Catherine,
hello. I started the walking challenge, which means I have to be out sort of morning and dusk. And obviously I'm getting loads and loads of birdsong. And some of it I've been videoing where I've gone and getting the birdsong. And I've been sharing them with a WhatsApp group, which is why I'm here. And then I've shared it with work as well to get reactions from the videos.
Yeah, just to see what they think of it and to make that connection with another person.
And one of them who I've sort of said it within a matter of days, whether it's the walking or whether it's the being outside or both, how different I feel within days. Brilliant. Sort of calmer and better concentration, all sorts.
Yeah,
I think it's from the walking. Yeah.
And you've had that direct experience, which might help you encourage another person because you've noticed it in yourself.
Yeah.
And it might be a starting point to, if you felt comfortable to share with another, a patient saying, I tried this. See, why don't you try it? See what you think. And it's absolutely not a cure-all, but it's something that you can then offer to a patient to try out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she'll be walking as far, but I think it's being out among nature as well that's done that. So, and she can do that certainly. And
creating some sort of routine and a purpose to go outside is really helpful. So like your walking challenge is your purpose, but eventually it will become a routine that you look forward to.
Yeah, I feel better for doing it, certainly.
Well done.
Starts quite early.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's good. Well, I wonder if you'll keep it up after the challenge ends.
I hope so. Probably not daily, but I mean the weather should pick up, shouldn't it? But I've been quite lucky this week, but yeah, it does sort of set you up for the day.
Well done, Catherine. Lovely. I'll just go back to the presentation for now. Okay, so we've had a really good success at noticing these 3 good things in nature and beginning to share them with other people. Just bear with me. Right. And then I've got a little video to start the session off today, and it really sets the scene about Michael, who is quite a young person. I think he's just finished university, and the video, it's only short, it's about a minute or so, and it's just him explaining his story about how connecting with nature has really had a positive impact on his mental health. And I think it's quite a recent video, so they're talking about the COVID pandemic and how getting out in nature has been important for him. I'll click on the link. As always, it may start with a YouTube video advert, so we will just skip that when we can. And if someone can indicate whether it's playing properly, that would be excellent. And I'll put the captions on.
And this is how I connect with nature. So the biggest challenges for mental health over the past few years has been stresses from dealing with university and stuff that has changed quite drastically in the past year. When you come out here, you're obviously expelling a bit of energy and you're releasing it. but it like gives it back in the same sense, because when you're talking with your friends, you release a lot of the sort of thoughts that you're having and a lot of the worries that you're having, and then in turn they can share theirs with you, and it kind of makes you feel like less like you're alone in your thoughts that you're having, and less sort of isolated as we have been. Well, walking has helped quite a lot, but I have other hobbies such as like running and mountain biking, and mountain biking would be a hobby that I've had since I was like a youngster, so it was definitely one of the things that helped me sort of get back into the flow of normality, where I was like, oh, this is something where I'm passionate about, but it's also getting you outside and getting you active to the point where you have like energy to do more stuff throughout the day. This is my story, and this is how I connect with nature.
So that video will be on the presentation, so you can have a look at that again if you'd like to. And then I'm just going to go back to the presentation. There we go. Can everybody see that okay now? Hopefully. So I wondered if we could have a little group, a group quiz or a group knowledge sharing session. So as a whole team, can anybody shout out any of the 5 pathways to nature connectedness? And then once that person said one of the pathways, can another person give an example? So let me come back to you so we can all see each other. So does anyone want to start us off with one of the 5 pathways to nature connection?
Is one compassion?
One is compassion,
Yeah.
yes. So Catherine started us off with compassion. So how could compassion, having compassion for nature, lead to a more of a connection to nature? So what might you do if you were showing compassion to nature? You could maybe feed the birds, would be one thing. You could try out some wildlife gardening activities if you had some green space to use. Does anyone else want to say any ideas of showing compassion?
Put some water out for the birds.
Yep, lovely, absolutely. And then you can have the pleasure of having a look at them as well when they're having a bath.
Yeah, and especially when it's frozen up as well, you can release the freeze from the top,
Yes.
so they've got access to the water.
Thank you, Mandy.
Putting up a solitary bee box.
Yep, absolutely. So when we feel close to nature, we're caring about nature and we feel close to it, we're much more likely to take these sort of pro-environmental steps, which is great for nature because it will have that benefit, but it's also great for us because we get a sense of well-being from knowing that we're taking care of something else, taking that time to care. So does anyone have, can anyone else tell me another one of the 5 pathways? There's one that begins with B.
Beauty.
Beauty, thank you, Helen. So I think that's quite self-explanatory really about finding beauty in nature, but that could be a very personal thing. It could be, you know, like your ladybirds, looking very closely and noticing something very small, or it could be a bit like a familiar view that you tend to go to want to have a look at. So you know, you might take a sandwich and a cup of tea and enjoy a view that means something to you. And I've just given you a clue to another one of those pathways that begins with M. Mary, do you want to help us out with the M word?
Yeah, it was meaning.
Meaning, fantastic.
Yeah, so I think that's a tricky one to remember. It's something that you kind of know without knowing.
Yeah, you find your own personal
Yeah.
meaning in an example of nature. What's that? So we've had compassion, we've had beauty, we've had meaning. What else? We've got two more.
One is senses, and I've been sat here thinking there's listening, there's seeing. What's
Yep.
the other ones? And then just actually no, it's
So you
senses.
can use your senses to engage in nature. So anything that's available to you, you can use. And then, so there's one more. Can anyone?
Emotion.
Emotion. Thanks, Owen. So most people have some sort of emotional response to being in nature. That might be feeling really positive, or it might be feeling a bit uneasy if it's a new place, and that might change for different people. So we can always be aware that there's a full spectrum of emotions available that people might be feeling when they're in nature, but we can tap into those positive ones, which will give us some really good positive associations, so our brain becomes more likely to enjoy the natural world if we're having positive experiences in it. Fantastic. Well done, everybody. Good teamwork. Okay. Share my screen. So here was a picture of a group in the Botanical Gardens in Sheffield. And I don't know if anyone else has been to the Botanical Gardens. They have they have an awful lot of squirrels who have become very adept at taking nuts and food from people, whether that's a good thing or not. But it does give us that really, a nice connection with a wild animal that people can see up close. And so we were practicing lots of things. We were moving more, finding these squirrels. We were taking care of them in some ways by giving them some extra food and using our senses. Like I think that's Mary there taking a photo. So making a positive memory from our time feeding these squirrels. Let me just move the page on. Sorry, everybody. So we've been through the 5 pathways of nature connection. So we're using our senses, we're having an emotional response to being in nature. We're finding our own personal meaning from the things we're seeing. We're finding beauty in nature in all its forms, and drawing that all together by having compassion for nature. So taking care of nature in all different ways. And we had a look at this Venn diagram last week, but I thought we could just go through it again, just to remind everyone about where green social prescribing would fit. So it needs 3 elements to become really good practice. So you need your natural surroundings. So that might be a local park, it might be for example, the Botanical Gardens, it could be somewhere wilder, it could be sort of almost those in-between spaces, those common grounds between the housing estates. We need people, so we need a social context. So you would have a group of people either being referred in or part of the group, and then you would be engaging in some meaningful activity, and that could be anything. It could be a cycling project, a running group, it could be care farming, it could be growing projects, it could be nature-based activities. So there's a whole range of meaningful activities that can draw people together. But when you have all 3 of them going on, where they all intersect can be seen as really good practice in green social prescribing. And then I have a great demonstration of this, which the Wild at Heart group made in the summer. So I think during lockdown, everyone discovered TikTok, and perhaps it wasn't just for kind of young kids. And our Wild at Heart group got really interested in making these little TikTok videos. So they would do videos throughout the session, and then put them together with some music to kind of showcase the project. But I think it really showcases how you've got the nature or the natural surroundings, you've got the social context of the people, and they're engaged in a meaningful activity. So I'm just going to click on this link, and it's just a very short TikTok video that you can have a look at. Oh, that's not quite right, is it? So can you see that okay? There we go. So has anybody used TikTok in their work, or used it to advertise, had been on the receiving end of the TikTok videos to advertise various different opportunities? No, I think it's sort of for those that are interested in it. So we didn't push it on the group. They just wanted to have a go at it. They'd seen the TikTok dances and things and thought, oh, we could make one for our group. And so going with the flow with things like that, those playful moments can be really helpful. And for the next part of the session, we're going to be talking about play in adults and the benefits of encouraging those playful moments. So I'll go back to the presentation. So as always, we are human animals which need some social connection, and animals and humans, we learn about the world through play. And I just wanted to share with you this short documentary. We're only going to watch the first part of it, the first few minutes, and it just shows how as animals we need play, and how we learn through play, and that really helps our development. And then we're going to be having a look about how you can intertwine nature connection and playful moments. So
behavior that has long been overlooked by science.
Play used to be thought of as a useless, functionless activity, and now we understand that play is extremely important.
In fact, scientists now think play is so important, it's fundamental to almost everything an animal learns.
It's something that we're really only just starting to fully appreciate now, and these benefits are really diverse.
In this episode, we explore new research that reveals the amazing powers of play. From helping animals hone their instincts, defy aging, and even learn skills once thought to be exclusive to humans. We're only beginning to realize the true powers of animals and play. In the jungles of Thailand, there is a predator with a playful side. These clouded leopard cubs are just 6 months old. They're being raised at a conservation centre to help boost species numbers. And like many young animals, they love nothing more than a game of chase. And they play it time expert Bill these youngsters since they were just 2 weeks old. Much of their day is dedicated to repetitive play.
These cubs are so playful at the moment. That is probably the most playful stage of their lives. It's the same behaviours over and over again. A lot of chasing, a lot of climbing, jumping on each other, play fighting. They're constantly playing.
So much energy on one seemingly pointless behavior would appear evolutionary madness. Yet, young animals seem determined to do it. Bored of playing the same games, scientists think the answer may lie in new research.
To really understand how play behaviour works, it helps to have a look at what the brain is doing.
One of the things we're finding is that while animals play, there are chemical changes in the brain involving endorphins, opioids, dopamine. A variety of different chemicals seem to underlie and be enhanced by playing.
And endorphins are the body's reward chemicals. They give animals and us a feel-good factor. They're also highly addictive.
So that just gives you a bit of an insight how our brains respond to play. And it's not only while we're children, when we're learning and developing our skills, that we need play. It's just that as children, we usually have that innate sense of nature connection, that we experience a very easy connection to nature. We play outside, we have great imagination, we can hone our skills and use them. And by the time we get to teenagers, perhaps we don't play as much, and we don't have that nature connection as strongly by the time we get to our mid-teens. And so that level of well-being associated with the nature connection isn't perhaps there for us from teenagerhood till much later in life. So and that's what happens naturally, but we can counteract that, if you like. We can strengthen those connections and pathways in the brain, in our brains, to maintain and to improve our connection with nature. And starting with the 5 pathways to nature connection is a really good framework for this. Of course, there's other ways to connect with nature, and you might find what works for you. And you can really see how green social prescribing you as link workers can signpost your patients to these supportive environments where people can have really positive experiences in the natural world, often in having those playful moments. So I wondered if we would like to come back together as a group, and I'll pop you in 2 different breakout rooms, and perhaps as your 2 groups, you could, if you want to share, like, do you play in your life? And there's a little infographic here, so playing doesn't have to be rough and tumble in the same way that children might. We play as adults quite differently. And these are just a few of the ways which have been identified by Stuart Brown, who is I think you would call him a social psychologist, who has studied play and written many books about the importance of play and how adults play. And you might find yourself playing through, I don't know, having a laugh, telling a joke, or it might be kinesthetic, so it might be a very physical way. It might be through sport or at the gym. You might be an explorer, so finding out more. I think this chap's got a magnifying glass and having a look at the insects on a plant. You might have signed up as for a local competition like a run or a dance class. You might be a director, you might be helping other people. It looks like Scouts here or something, where somebody is kind of encouraging that school, the Scout group, to have some fun. It might be through creating, so it might be making art or creative writing, anything which allows our brain to be at play. It might be telling stories. You might entertain your friends with many stories, or you might collect. You might have a special collection that you share with others, and it might take you to you know, to connect with other people, and you can follow that as a hobby. Before we break up into our breakup rooms, I will just play you this video. It's very, very short. It's only a minute, and it's about it's just Stuart Brown talking himself about how and why play is important. So I'll click on this link and it will take us to YouTube.
Why is play important? Well, begin to think of life without it. No humor, no innovation, diminished creativity, depression, physical inactivity, and then think about life with it. Humor, optimism, physical activity, deep engagement, and it is the key to unlocking one's own innate personal talents. It is also the key to really looking within oneself for what is it that really motivates me, what makes me a self, what gives me a sense of purpose, what gives me a sense of future. And without play, we don't really have that deep engagement in life and our own future and our own authentic self.
So let me come back as a group. So I'm going to pop you in breakout rooms for, we're just coming up to about 20 past 2. If I pop you in breakout rooms till just before 1/2 past, that gives you a little bit of time to have a group discussion. And then if one or two people from each group would like to either nominate themselves to be a bit of a reporter, and they can let the whole, you know, we can swap the information when we come back together. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. So I will see you just before 2:30, and then I'm just going to pop you into 2 rooms. And so we're talking all about your own experience of play and how you find play in your own lives.
This meeting is being recorded.
Brilliant. So is that everybody back? I think so. So how was that experience of sharing your own experience of playing as an adult? Does anyone want to say anything that you talked about, or share any other observations?
Well, we didn't select a spokesperson, Jenny, but I'm happy to say if anybody else would like to.
So perhaps you can start, and then anyone else can add to what you say.
Well, I think we covered quite a bit of ground in our session, and Mandy made some interesting comments right at the start about how education, or the formal education that we have in school, seems to depress the urge to play that children have, and the framework that we have to be sort of shoved into.
Be quiet and sit down.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, and the spontaneity seems to stop, and we have to conform to the structures that are in place in order to get through what you need what we're told we need to get through. And I think you said, Mandy, didn't you, that was it one of your grandchildren got in trouble for jumping in a puddle?
Oh no. Oh.
So and we also talked about, oh, Fiona, you mentioned about when you take your dog a walk, that walking is a game, and it does sort of free you up to engage with another living creature, and it gives you, it's almost the dog gives one permission to play. Same when you take one of your grandchildren out, because you can engage with them and play with them, it's all right. Whereas if you were just walking along in the woods and doing things that other people might think are a bit odd, you know, you might be viewed as a bit strange, but you can do it with your grandkids or your dog. And yes, I think, and again, Mandy, you said it's permission to be silly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what else did we talk about? Helen, you mentioned that in school we used to have a nature table, and in fact we did. In fact, it's one of my earliest memories is the nature table in the reception class, and that certainly seems to have.
Does anyone have a nature table at home, or bring home treasures from a walk? Fiona's got your hand. You've got your hands up.
Yeah, when I was a child, I had a table in my dad's shed where I used to keep bits of things. Every dead bird found was buried at the top of the garden with a little gravestone made out of hair grips. We kept old nests and everything. And more recently, I find myself I've got a couple of owl feathers. I've got some swan feathers.
Oh,
I've got a badger skull.
Wow.
I had to learn things I'd rather not know about to sort that out. I was having it. And I've got part of a wasp nest. So yes, I've got quite a little collection.
Yeah, brilliant. And having, you know, having a ephemeral kind of table that you chop and change as, you know, you find things, you bring them back. You don't have to keep it forever. It's just as long as it's meaningful for you and you like looking at it, have it. And then when it doesn't, when you don't like looking at it anymore, just, you know, pass it on or pop it outside. It's just anything that can stimulate that kind of connections within the brain. So every time you see it, you're little bit of uplifted, or it gives you a talking point with somebody else. Can all be really positive ways to create a nice strong connection with nature. And a nature table might not be for everybody, it might not suit everyone, but if that is something you can try, you want to try, go for it.
It does make you notice things. It makes children observe and notice things, I think.
And you can bring things in, have the pleasure of you know, saying, I found this lovely stone, what do you think of it?
Yeah.
It can be really helpful.
But another little anecdote was from Jo, Jenny, about going on a sports leadership training, and what fun it was to play Tiggy and play with bean bags and things that you used to do when you were little. And Jo, you said it was just absolutely great fun. And I think you mentioned exploring rock pools as well.
Brilliant.
So yeah, some great ideas.
Did you say about when we found those hula hoops at Wentworth Garden?
Oh, I forgot to mention that, Jenny.
So we went on a visit to Wentworth Woodhouse to explore the gardens. We had a lovely time, and on our way back, just as we were beginning to finish the session, we came across some hula hoops which had just been left out for people to play with. And one of our participants, John, he sometimes struggles with word finding, but he was able to communicate that we should all have a go at hula hooping, and he would take some pictures. So we all tried in various ways to hula hoop. And one woman, Ruth, said how much, you know, she wasn't able to hula hoop as a child, but she, as an adult, now she can hula hoop. That's kind of like really cheered her up. It's like made her inner child very happy. So we had a good 20 minutes or so just enjoying moving and experimenting with these hula hoops. So much so they've requested that we buy a few to bring to the sessions. So, me and Mary have got a 2-week hula hoop challenge to try and learn to be able to give people top tips to practice. But yes, going with the flow is so important. And then was that about it from your group, Mary? Yeah. So who was in the other group? Does anyone else want to share anything that you were chatting about?
Yeah, we covered quite a lot of stuff actually,
Yeah.
Jenny. Some, from exercise, as in people finding, moving to Sheffield, finding that running down hills was good fun, not so much going up them, but it basically takes you back to childhood. There was people that do karate as well as as a family thing. So it's keeping fit and basically good for good for your brain as well. There was all sorts of stuff coming out, as regards wood carvings in local woods, sort of collectors of pebbles, even collecting sticks for, to make bug dens and things like that. And a lot of, the emphasis is like this is going back to childhood. I think an example of that is, as a child, collecting sort of pebbles on a beach, and also pine cones, and it's going to tell you what weather's going to be like, what I'm saying. So this going back to childhood, I think is part of it. But there's a lot of stuff in there that a lot of different interests.
Lovely, thank you, Stephen. And I think that's so important about how there is so many different interests and so many different ways that we can all play, and we can find what we're comfortable with, what we're comfortable doing, and following our own interests in a playful way can be so helpful to help our own resilience, within the working day and in our home life. If we can incorporate moments of play, it can really help us feel a bit stronger when we're working with other people.
Jenny, can I just share something as well?
Of course you can.
A few years ago, some friends and I went down to Burley House, which is privately owned in Lincolnshire. And one of my fondest memories is part of their formal gardens, they changed into water gardens. It was all about play and fun. And it was great. Families, just adults, we didn't have children with us, but we got the same enjoyment out of it. Fantastic. And the first thing is you can't get into the garden without getting wet unless you actually time yourself. So it's like 2 hedges with a metal bar across the top and water nozzles. So the first thing you had to do was avoid getting wet just by getting into the garden through a different way of interacting. So you had to judge. Otherwise you got wet.
And time it right and have a bit of fun while doing it.
That's right. And then once you were in, there were lots of things going on where you had to watch that you weren't going to get wet, or experimentation with gravity and water and ladders. And
so you're learning
and
testing out things.
So I don't know whether it was really successful, but I don't know whether Burley House has still got that running. But if people want to look that up, it's BURGHLEY. And that's
it's still going. It's called the Garden of Surprises. I live near there, so that was it.
That's it.
Have you been there, Yvonne?
Yeah, I used to live a mile away from there, so it was but what was interesting, it was the owner of the house, and when she retired from the property, because there is they were custodians, that was her gift, and so it was based on place up in Newcastle where there are gardens, and it's a much smaller thing, but it was, she felt that she wanted to give something happy back to what is, a kind of stately home in a way.
But it makes it appealing for all different age groups. Even if you don't have an interest in the history of the house, you can enjoy the experience.
I think there's something similar at Alnwick Garden, where there's a tree house and there's sort of rope walkways that I remember sort of jumping on them and having quite a lot of fun. And I think the water fountains at a certain point would start, I think they played music and the water fountains, I think they were doing lots of directions. It's a long time ago, but it was something that you sort of stopped and enjoyed at the time.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to do a little bit of research about these places and pop them on the Padlet, I think that would be a lovely thing to share with other members of the group. Fantastic. Has anyone else got anything they want to share from your group discussions? Oh, Annie, I can't quite hear you though. Still can't quite hear you. Try and pop yourself on mute and then unmute yourself in case it's... I can't hear you. Can anyone else hear Annie? We had this before. Maybe just have a look. Where is it? It's somewhere here where you need to just check that your microphone is ticked, where it says select a microphone. So in the corner where you've got the... Oh.
Or use the chat.
Yes, or tell us in the chat. Okay. Use it, pop it in the chat and we'll have a look. It's almost going to be a surprise what Annie types. Could be anything.
The funny thing is, I can hear Annie's keyboard, I think. I can hear the keys.
Oh, wow.
But I can't see anything in chat.
No. Are you typing, Annie? What we could do is pop... Oh, here we are. Sorry about that. I just wanted to add how valuable intergenerational working is. Absolutely. So
yeah.
I find that, you know, between the generations, especially if we're working with children, it can really give us that permission to play, because children are fully expecting us to play, and we kind of have to stand up to step up to it and enjoy those playful moments. And then once we get comfortable with that playful moments, we can have fun, you know, regardless of if the children are there or not. And I was just imagining one of the sessions where we found some fallen logs in a woodland, and we were trying to do some simple balancing, and it was just the same sort of thing that you would learn as a child, but we were a group of adults supporting each other to balance on logs, and that sort of, you know, helps people bond and have a friend and a trust that someone else is going to support them. But yes, we can learn definitely a lot from intergenerational opportunities. Thanks, Annie. So share my screen. Okay. So we've had a lovely discussion about how play is really useful as adults. We definitely need elements of play within our lives. It really helps with our self-expression. And a bit like when we're working with children generally have a non-judgmental approach. And if we can emulate that in our way of working as a professional, it can really give people permission to play. So if we show up as our kind of authentic selves, with a play, you know, where appropriate, with a playful mindset, it can help another person feel safe enough to try out being playful themselves. And a bit like when we were talking about green social prescribing, if you can have people working together under a shared endeavour, that can really help build a sense of community. And play is a really great leveler. It doesn't matter what you've done as a job in the past, you're finding that connection in that moment. So all those other restrictions you have, they fall away because you're enjoying that moment together. And absolutely, those playful moments help us step away from the labels that we've been applied to us. You know, are we depressed? Have we been out of work for a long time? Are we living with a long-term condition? Lots and lots of those labels kind of get stuck to us. And if we're having playful moments with others, those things aren't as apparent because we're sharing that moment together, and creating that positive social interaction. And that's the bits that stay with us. And I think with play and nature connection, they go hand in hand. So we often, with green prescribing opportunities, you're using nature to experience playful moments, but you're also having those playful moments to experience nature. And I just wondered if anybody, you've begun to do it earlier in our discussions, but does anyone have any really playful moments in nature they want to share with another person or the rest of the group? So has anyone climbed a tree recently? No? What about, has anybody, oh, who swims? So is that Annie who goes swimming? Fantastic. Lovely. So is that in like a pond or a lake or river swimming? Well, yes, but don't worry, you can just enjoy being in that cold water. How about, has anyone noticed any of the pussy willow buds, those lovely little fluffy buds which are just about to come out? Or is somebody about to say something then?
I've got one in the garden, but I've not noticed any.
Oh, you can keep a check on it over these next few weeks. And if you wanted to, you could encourage a few sprigs of it to flower earlier by cutting them and bringing them inside to speed up the process.
One of the things that's been a revelation to me has been hazel catkins.
Yeah.
And the pink female flower, which
oh yes,
I was
looking
never
really close. Yeah.
ever aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're
Absolutely.
very hard to photograph because they're so small.
Yes. Fantastic. And then Mandy, were you going to say something? Somebody, maybe not.
It was me, but I can't. I keep clicking me volume on and off. I'd seen some. I think they were like the spinning Jenny things. I don't know if it's a bit early, but I'd seen something yesterday in the garden that I picked up with like the seed pods in, but I'm not quite sure what they belong to because it's quite early. But I did see it there yesterday.
Lovely. So it may have been left over from the previous summer, maybe.
Right.
I'm not sure what you found, but it's definitely worth having a closer look and seeing what you think of it. And it's great that you just noticed it to pick it up and have a closer look.
And suddenly, when you've just said, I'm not sure what it was, I'm thinking, oh, shall I run out and get it and see if I can find it and poke it down the screen?
In a minute,
then I'm thinking, that's not a good plan, really.
I mean, that is a playful moment, being spontaneous. Absolutely fine from my point of view. We are having a little nature break in a bit, and so you could go and fetch it
if I can find it again.
Yeah, and we can have a closer look together. That's the sort of absolutely going with the flow, having a playful moment really tends to help a group bond together and share and feel comfortable to share.
Yeah, definitely.
Has anyone got anything else they'd like to say before I just go back to the other screen? You're okay? Okay. So we've got Tina here painting some rocks. as a bit of a playful activity. And then we, for those that wanted to, would then go on to hide those rocks in sort of parks and in between spaces, maybe even in the town centre, for other people to find and cheer them up. And so it's a bit like a sharing and a hiding game. So, well, what great timing. So there's an opportunity now to go out to the garden and collect any seed heads you want to share with other people. But so we're going to have a short comfort break now. But I want to pose a playful question for you. If you were on a desert island, and it doesn't have to be a terribly harsh or austere desert island, it could be your perfect island, which animal companion would you like to take with you? So if you want to spend a little bit of time during your break having a think about which animal companion would suit you to spend some time with on an island, and if we come back together, so I think it's just nearly 2:45. If we come back at 10 to 5 to 3, let's come back at 5 to 3, have a comfort break. You can spend some time outside if that's available to you, have a look out the window, enjoy a cup of tea, and come back feeling refreshed, and we can talk about what makes a successful green social prescribing referral. I can see Helen's pussycats come to join us. That's lovely. Right then, everybody. So keep this Zoom session open and just come back when you're ready at 5 to 3. And don't forget to think of a animal companion on your desert island. Okay, everybody. See you shortly. So, would anyone like to share what animal companion they would like to take on a trip on a desert island with, together with even? Fiona.
Oh, sorry. My dog, maybe.
Your dog?
Or for more practical purposes, probably an otter. Because of the entertainment value and it's quite good for fishing.
Fantastic. So you can share the fish.
Yeah.
Convince it to share the fish.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I love it. And then Mandy.
Yeah, for me, it has to be my dog. My dog's been through an awful lot with me, and I wouldn't dare not take her because I'd be in serious trouble for a very long time if I did.
Yes. So your faithful companion, your dog. Yes. What's your dog called?
Bella.
Bella. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, she's been around when there's been a lot of life-changing events. So I have a very strong bond with her. So it would definitely have to be her.
Lovely. Annie, were you showing us something? Oh, tilt the top down a bit. A dragon? No, fish.
Snake.
A snake.
It's a snake,
wow.
No. Hang on.
No?
It looks like a snake to
me. No, they're seals.
Oh.
I think they're seals. Is that right? Seals, yeah. So you'd have some seals with you. Wow, so you really are a mermaid with your wild swimming. Fantastic. Would anyone else like to share their companion animals?
Well, Jenny, I'd have a sparrow. Because wow. They chatter all the time and it would remind me of home and keep me company.
Familiar sounds.
Yeah, that's what I'd love.
Yeah. It's lovely when you walk past a hedge and all the sparrows are inside, it's making their noise.
They're so sociable. That's what I like about them.
Very good. Oh, and Peter, you've got your hand up.
Can you hear me or okay, Jenny?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I've always had a bit of a thing for puffins. I like puffins. I think they're very comical little birds.
So do you think you'd choose an island where the puffins were living naturally and then you can look at them all, or would you have one special puffin with you?
Ideally it should be an island with puffins, but if not, I'd take one with me. Brilliant. And I like to go up to Bempton Cliffs when I go up to the East Coast, and you was talking about the little stones that people leave, the pebbles that people paint up.
Yeah.
I've like to go up to like Benton Cliffs when it's quite late at night, when it's not so busy, and somebody left me that.
Oh, look. Oh, fantastic. So it was meant to be. You were meant to find that one. That's fantastic. Did everyone see that? That was a stone with a puffin on that Peter had found. Fab. So that it just shows that those painted rocks games really do cheer people up. So it's not only great to have a play painting the stone, but there's joy there for the person who finds it. Has anybody else got any animals they want to share? Or you can keep that as a personal animal companion. Where is some who was going to go outside and find that seed head? Was it Mandy?
It was myself.
So did you do that?
Yeah, I think it's old Spinning Jenny's, but it must have been a new looking one. So
let's have a look.
That's them there. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, hold it a bit higher and a bit more. Okay, so you've got some sort of like blurring backgrounds. So just hold it right. Hold it right in front of your face, and then maybe put your face a little bit closer to the screen.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that is. Is it a sycamore?
I don't know, it might be. There's another
flower?
one exactly the same. And another one. But I found something more exciting.
Okay, yep. Show us.
I found this something that's obviously blown off my compost.
And again, move that much closer to the screen.
It's got new buds on it, but I don't even know what it is. It was just laid there on the grass. But can you see those new buds?
Yeah, pop it in some soil.
I'm going to stick it in and remind me of today.
Yeah.
So
fantastic. And let us know what grows from it.
Does anybody know what it looks like?
I think it's a sedum. I think it's a sedum by the looks of it.
Right.
It will get quite brittle, but it will grow, yeah.
Right. Well, I'll have a go at that, and then that will be there from today. Yeah. I wouldn't have found it if I hadn't been pottering around trying to avoid the dog poo.
And that. And then in future you'll be able to look back on this session.
Yes, that's right.
With your new sedum plant.
Yes, thank you.
Fab. Thanks, Mandy.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Glenn's got his hand up, Jenny.
Oh yes, lovely, Glenn.
Yeah, I'm going back to the taking the animal to the desert island. So it depends. I've got two choices.
We'll let you have two animals.
If it's a desert island with palm trees, or it's just a desolate desert island, I would take a dog. And the reason for the dog, if it's just a desert island, is companionship. Would be able to walk, run, have a conversation together. No disrespect to anybody that's got any cats, but I just find cats are totally individuals, not pack animals. So that's all right for them to be like that.
Yep.
But dogs, I tend to find, no matter what type of day you have, they're happy to see you. They're not bothered by what emotion you have. They're just joyful. Whereas cats can be moody. Again, no disrespect to cat lovers anywhere.
I think dogs are you know just hold you in positive regards. The way that they just look at you and they are happy to see you, and they'll definitely play if they want to play.
And then the second one was if we were on a desert island with trees, I'd have a chimpanzee.
Oh wow, goodness me.
So
wow.
The chimpanzee would hopefully be better at climbing than I have. After a number of years falling out of trees, I think it's wise to get an animal that can climb trees.
So a bit like the otter, you'd make a team with a chimpanzee.
Yeah. And chimpanzees can problem solve. So together, two heads are better than one.
Fantastic. Love it. Wow. That's I love that power of imagination that we all have to be able to tell these stories. Fantastic. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to have a look about what makes a really successful green social prescribing referral. So we have a very happy little baby seal to begin with. Excuse me. Okay, so just a bit of a short recap. So no matter what the green social prescribing opportunity that you come across and that you're thinking about, really best practice shows that they should be fun, engaging. People undertake no fail activities. It with no pressure to have to do the activity perfectly to be able to fit in. And then the nature-based activity, or whatever the activity is that is outside, that becomes the icebreaker for people to start to have positive conversations. Through the conversations, they feel good. Through accomplishing various activities or trying new things, that's a confidence boost. And people are able to express who they are and see themselves in a positive way, because good practice shows that if the group is run with a non-judgmental approach, people feel much more open to be themselves. And a quick reminder about, if you want to spend some time clicking on the link and having a really good look at the Institute of Outdoor Learning, their statement of good practice for outdoor mental health interventions. And it's really all about making sure that we're providing really high quality activities and opportunities for people, but actually that they're well run, with the staff working to their own professional competency, which will allow you to be able to make sure that the organisations that you're referring people to are able to meet the needs of your patient, and so the patient has a really good and positive sound experience in nature with these, whatever it might be, whichever green social prescribing opportunity that they are attending. So you can spend some time having a look at that, share it with your colleagues, share it with your managers, because the more people who know about it will only improve, best practice within the whole field of green social prescribing. So to be able to really dig into what is going on locally in your specific areas, I hope that you will be allowed some time to really explore all the opportunities that are going on locally. You could start with things like online directories and the mental health guide in each area, to try and identify various green social prescribing opportunities that you could direct people to. And it may be that some of these organisations will be approaching you to tell you about their latest offering or courses, spaces, whatever it might be. But a really great way of putting it all together is to create some sort of really local team directory of the contact details of all the various different community activities, especially with a green or a nature focus, that you can add to and update as a team. So it's not on any one person's shoulders, the whole responsibility of keeping it up to date, because like any database or listing, as soon as you've completed it becomes out of date. So it's going to be a constant practice of updating what you know about these opportunities and having it as a shared document within your team. So then you can benefit from other people's research and findings as well. And you might want to put various bits of information on the document, things like, what segment of the population do they work with? Is it a open group for anybody to attend, or a closed group that you have to submit a referral to? All the details about how much the session costs, how long are the placements available for, everything that you need to know to be able to explain that to the person you're working with or your patient. And it might be that everybody works differently in what they're expected to do. But it might be that you would like to go and visit some of these green prescribing opportunities. And I'm sure that any of these green social prescribing opportunities, if you were to contact them and say, I'd really like to come and have a look at what you're doing, so then I can tell my patients about it, would welcome you to come along. We've been having quite a few people coming to see Wild at Heart and joining in and having an experience of a Wild at Heart session. And then when they go back to their own practice, they're able to tell the patients exactly what the group's like and be able to judge better whether it might suit that person and kind of tell them about the things that they enjoyed in the session and that the other person can look forward to. And finding out what the patient is ready for and are they actually really wanting to try this opportunity, or are they just saying yes to please you, or to because they think that's the right answer. So really digging into what are they trying to get out of these sessions. So we've broken this information down into kind of 3 different things. So it's kind of information that you need to find out as a social prescriber or a link worker, information that the patient needs to know to feel confident to join the opportunity, and then information that you and the patient might provide to the organisation so they can meet that person's needs and really prepare well. So then by doing all 3 of those things, hopefully the referral stands a better chance of success for the patient successfully joining in and benefiting from whatever they've decided that they want to try. So I thought we could start with if you imagine you had a patient who's interested in a green social prescribing opportunity that you had in mind, what might you have to get ready to prepare some information so you're able to let them know exactly what to expect from it. So it's what we were saying just a minute ago about creating a list of what's available locally, finding out how is it organised, maybe the names of the staff members, because it's far easier to say, why don't you try out Wild at Heart on a Thursday morning? There's Jenny and Mary there, they can welcome you to the group. Finding out the details about the session can really help a person feel confident and make that decision to attend, rather than saying, oh, I think there's a nature group in the park, I think it's on a Thursday. Just by giving that bit more information can really build a bit of trust. And then finding out if there's any joining criteria, is there any space in the group for new people, and that will ebb and flow throughout the year. So at sometimes the year there might not be space, and so you might have to find something else to refer that patient to. And setting the expectations from the patient, is it, if it's an open-ended group, they can grow and develop within that group, or is it just a 6 or a 12-week placement? Because the more information we have ahead of time, we can really set the expectations of the patients, so they know what to expect from the group. They kind of know the timescale they're going to be attending, and kind of a bit more about the organisation and how the kind of aims of whatever the activity they're undertaking is. This one was at Wild at Heart while we were doing a litter pick to kind of slightly improve the 4 greens. So we took it upon ourselves to every quarter or so we spent some time using the litter pickers and working together to clean up the local green space. And so alongside what you might need to prepare ahead of time, you might need to prepare some information to share with the patients, and have those conversations, finding out what they're interested in, starting with what's meaningful to that person. Where is the nature connection that they're interested in? It might be running, it might be gardening, it might be cycling, it might be swimming. All different hobbies are a great place to start, and then trying to match that up with kind of what is out there locally, hyper locally, what can they get to, where can they travel to easily. Most people want something right on their doorstep, because that's going to be the most easy thing to attend, because you don't have to get several buses. There's no cost of if you can just walk there, or if it's around the corner. Some people might need extra support to attend. So can they buddy up with someone? Are they able to bring someone along with them? That might be a support worker. It might be a family or member or a friend. Making sure we know if there's a cost to joining in, what that might be. Is that going to be a feasible cost for that person? And is there anything else that you need to arrange, or they need to tell you about, to help them feel comfortable in attending this session? And it might be something like working with the organisation that they're coming to say, right, okay, well, we'll be outside and we'll meet you to accompany you in, because their real anxiety is about going in through the door in the first place. So that can be some conversations to have with your patients, and then conversations to have with the organisation that you're referring to. So the best thing you can do is build up a really strong relationship with these different organisations, so then you can feel confident in who you're referring these people to. And most green social prescribing providers have some sort of referral process, because they want to know about the patients who are going to be attending their sessions, so they can prepare appropriately. But the information you give might be slightly different to if you're making a referral for a benefit or a housing assistance. So if you have the time, it is great to be able to spend some time on this, putting some useful and meaningful information that the patient wants you to share, because the more that organisation knows about that patient, the easier it is for them to have a conversation, build some trust and rapport while on the phone explaining whatever the session is going to entail. But if they know a little bit about what that person is already interested in, things like they might already have a pet, they might already go to a local park, or they might have an allotment or used to have an allotment, anything that you think is relevant that the other organisation might be able to start a conversation about, can be really, really helpful. And that will lead to just a more satisfying experience for the patients, and more likely to sort of increase the take-up and be a successful referral where they continue on whatever opportunity you have signposted them to. So I'll just come back to the group just for a moment. So does anyone want to say anything about how they already signpost people to various green social prescribing opportunities, and what you find works or perhaps doesn't work, or anything that you want to share with the group? Peter?
Just for the green social prescribing referrals that I've made, which haven't been that many to be honest, but I've always tried to attend the first session with the client. I think that is really beneficial.
Definitely, and then it's sort of it's a bit of moral support for the patient, as well as you are finding out more about what goes on at the session, so then you can tell other patients. Does anyone else have that opportunity to be able to accompany a patient to a session? Everyone works slightly differently in different locations.
I can do enabling.
Yeah.
Part of my role is to have a group, but another part is enabling. So yesterday I was trying to meet someone at Winthrop Garden in Wickersley. He forgot to come.
Yes.
But he's hoping to volunteer there. So I wanted him to see the garden. And if he had come, the gardening volunteers were there.
Fantastic. And it absolutely is trial and error, and that encouragement, and it sometimes doesn't work perfectly the first time. But to have that supportive environment to encourage him to attend the gardens. And sometimes you have to feel that kind of emotional connection with the organisation or the, you know, for example, these Winthrop Gardens, if he's never been there before, it's quite hard to expect someone to want to volunteer until they really have a passion for that place.
I
mean, it can be really a slower process than what we'd want it to be.
I mean, there's, if I can share, there's quite an interesting motivation, but quite a sad one. He can garden, but he's got a brain injury and he's very forgetful, which is what happened yesterday. But his wife was the person who told him what to put in the garden and told him what to do, and she died in November. So he's wanting to learn a little bit now, so he can maintain his own garden.
Oh goodness!
So
I hope he gets there with your support. That sounds a really good plan.
So I'm hoping to identify the plants in his garden with an app.
Yeah.
And perhaps hopefully get him something together in writing that he can refer to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know when I'll find time.
Oh, I'm sure it will happen. And it sounds like it's you know, something he really wants to do.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes off, it will be a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Has anyone else got anything they'd like to share? That's okay. So, with Annie. Okay, yep. Annie is thinking about working with people who can't get out, sort of growing seedlings and having bird feeders. So window, growing things on a window box, do you mean? Yeah, lovely idea. And that sense of taking care of, you know, a plant or nurturing some seedlings to grow can be so helpful. You know, it doesn't have to be a massive garden, just having a few little, even if it's some marrow fat peas that you sprout and then you eat eventually, that can be really satisfying for people, and they can tap into that sense of, you know, tending something, nurturing it, and all those feelings associated with that can be really helpful. Same with feeding the birds. You know, you're doing something to help something outside of yourself, and it's a great time of year to be feeding birds, and you can do it in quite, you know, low cost, effective ways. Brilliant, Annie. That's super. Anybody else before I go and share my screen again? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, was that Mandy?
It was me, so it was me again.
That's okay.
I've just got the idea from joining this about, you know, getting lots of wildflower seeds and perhaps share anyone in the group that wants to doing a patch in the garden of wildflowers.
Yeah, like there's quite a few years ago there started to be you making like just a square meter to start with, and you know, starting really small and sowing sort of either wildflowers or flowers that are good for pollinators as a mix, and that can be really something that people can join in with.
Yeah, and I'm probably flag up was it No Mow May or the
No Mow May. So you're letting the grass grow a bit longer, so then the any of the, you know, people might call them weeds, but any of the other plants within the grass habitat get to flower, and then pollinating insects can use that as food, but also to let the grass grow a bit longer, so things like the moth caterpillars can eat the grass and then pupate within the grass, the lower levels of the grass, without it being cut down. Is really helpful, so and then that plant is able to complete its life cycle as well. So if it flowers, it can make its seeds, and then it can spread the seeds for the following year. You don't get that if you're mowing regularly, so you can encourage people to do a No Mow May, or even just selectively mow if they, you know, want to ease it in gently. Lovely, thanks Catherine. So we've talked a little bit about various various things we can try to help that referral go as smoothly as possible. And don't forget, you're all the team together, even though you work for different organisations across the geographical area. You've got the Padlet, you've got each other's email addresses, and you can problem solve together. And I just wanted to finish the last part of the session sharing a few of the recommendations from the Wyming project, which was a project which was, it kind of concluded its research a few years ago, just before lockdown. So Wyming stands for Improving Wellbeing Through Urban Nature. So we're talking about, rather than going out into the countryside for our nature connection, we're looking at the nature within our cities and towns. And they were studying, trying to look at how good quality natural spaces within a city can influence well-being. And there's some things which they have suggested as their findings, some things that we can do at our level when we're working with people through social prescribing, and other things which are maybe more relevant for commissioners, people planning for the future. So there's lots of different recommendations. On the Padlet, I have shared one of their documents, which is about their recommendations for healthcare professionals. And that is where I've got some of this information from. So if you want to have a look at it in more detail, with a bit more context around it, have a look at that PDF, because it's really interesting. It covers a lot of the best practice which we've been discussing in these 3 sessions, and I think it's really great. You know, some of these things we know, it's common sense, and you know, we know kind of the good practice and the ways to work with people, but it is really great that it's been highlighted here by the research project, and it's time that it's come is just right, because you know it's in time for this green prescribing pilot, that we're one of the 7 sites nationally who are doing these test and learn sites. So we can use the information and the recommendations from the Wyming project to kind of shape and influence the work that happens under the green prescribing pilot. So I think it's really important to familiarise yourself with it, but they've posed their recommendations as questions. So it's all about trying to, you know, effectively work together as groups. So making sure there is a wide range of community-based activities within a neighbourhood, and that doesn't happen naturally, you know, without anybody's effort. So when we're thinking about funders and commissioners and asset-based community development ideas, we need a whole range of things where people have you know, very in-depth support, one-to-one support, right the way through to people where they're self-sufficient, they're running their own activity, they're taking complete leadership of it, and what we need to see is a rich and diverse sorry, I've just forgotten the word, the rich and diverse sort of set of opportunities that reflect different interests, different needs within areas. And then we've talked a little bit about volunteering, and obviously without having that positive connection to a park or an organisation, it's very difficult to motivate someone to want to give their time. So working with different friends groups, so friends of groups tend to be people who might live locally, like Fiona at Brierley Spa, who have an interest in seeing the success of that park or area, and then they would obviously usually welcome extra volunteers and people to support them, but within the social prescribing context, to be able to link that person with something that's going on in their area before you even talk about volunteering is so important, because you've got to have that emotional connection to be able to want to spend your time supporting it. And there's lots of interest in GP practices to find out what's going on in the in the local area. Nearly all the GP practices have the link workers who can be supporting their patients to connect up and join in with community activities. And some GP practices are even thinking about greening up their own spaces within their practice, so making little nature gardens, wellbeing gardens. There is quite a lot of interest in that, and then doing some groups associated with the actual practice. And as we've said before, one of the main threads of this training is about these everyday opportunities to connect with nature. So noticing what's on your doorstep, looking for the seasonal changes, is some of the most easy things to connect with, rather than the more exotic, difficult to spot creatures and nature experiences. Sorry. So as I said before, so it's the everyday things that matter for well-being. We have, the more we experience those positive moments in nature, it strengthens those pathways within our brains to elicit that joy, and the well-being that comes from that. So if we can have that practice and share that practice with others, that can be really helpful. And then having those really good quality green spaces where we can feel safe in, where they have a rich biodiverse ecosystem that we can enjoy. The more we have that, the more likely that people are going to have those positive interactions with nature and other people. And then where the social part comes in, the people within our parks and gardens and green spaces within the towns and cities, if we have benches where people can sit and talk to each other for opportunities for connection, things like Winthrop Gardens, like you said, lots of different community gardens where people can, if their interest, join in without it being a service as such. Because we all have different hobbies and interests and different ways to find meaning in the world. But if we can link that person up with something that's relevant and meaningful, where they can undertake, they can contribute wherever they want and however they want to, that's where the positive feelings come from, that kind of working together on something, that shared endeavour. And Mary was saying earlier how just that having that positive, being held in positive regard by other people in a group really highlights that something good is possible. If we're feeling very depressed, we're anxious, we might be coping with pain or a long-term health condition, but if somebody is noticing you and helping you, and you're possibly a support to other people, it shows that something is good that it's possible, and it takes that person outside of themselves, and even if it's just briefly in that hour or 2 hour session, it just shows that some enjoyment in life is possible. And that's the feedback that people often give when we're asking about feedback about Wild at Heart, that just for those 2 hours, things feel a bit easier to cope with.
Yeah.
So I've found these lovely pictures of, this is the same owl when he was 11 days old to when he was a couple of years old. So owls grow very quickly over time, and we're also going to grow over time in our knowledge, in our experience and confidence, because this training is just the start of bringing more green social prescribing into our roles. And I wondered if we could spend a little time giving up each other some ideas of things that you might do to bring more green into your own social prescribing practice, or things that you might try out to boost your own connection with nature. And I'll come back as a group and we can perhaps have a little chat about that. So it might be things like, if I give you a couple of ideas to set you off, things like noticing 3 good things in nature, have it as a personal practice, but also share it with patients and colleagues. think about creating those micro moments of joy, beauty and compassion within your contact with that patient. So maybe having a nature table alongside your desk, putting some natural objects that could become talking points. Perhaps if it's appropriate, bring a little posy of hedge flowers, and trying out some of those micro nature connection activities. And you can find all sorts of the monthly seasonal nature activity packs on the website, which you could download and bring with you and go through and leave with your patient. So it's, as always, it's about those positive sensory experiences rather than learning about the nature. So you're using the nature to bring about those moments of positivity and happiness, which kind of lead that person to having those emotions. So let me come back to you as a group, and we can just share some ideas that you might like to try. So has anybody got any ideas how they might bring some green into their practice? Yeah, Fiona?
As a conversation starter, at the building I'm trying to save, we're not able to provide this service yet, which is
as an idea for the future.
Yeah, I first heard about the I1 project in 2019, and it identified with all of what we're trying to do. So that's as much as it's the reason why I'm here today. Bringing into this current debate, the nature table was mentioned earlier. This is part of a wasp nest.
Wow, yes, you can see those cells.
Yeah, it was literally at the side of a footpath I go on regularly, and for several months last year, very, very carefully. I didn't want to advertise it was there because I didn't want people to harm it, but then it was quite daunting. In the end, the badgers got to it, and that was the end of that. They stunk to high heaven, but it was literally just left. And I brought it home and dried it out, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I've also got the badger skull, which I found in another part of the city, again, literally at the side of the footpath. It had decayed enough for me to be able to put it in a bucket for a few weeks to clean it up. I hope it's an old badger, because most of the teeth are missing. The ones that are there are very discoloured and worn down. The point, as much as anything, is this stuff is all around us. I hadn't gone looking for these. They were literally at the side of where I was walking. And I think so much of the social prescribing and everything is to do with just getting people to look what's around them and appreciate what they see and realise it's not just, it's not relevant to them. It is. It's all part of
and finding what's relevant for each person.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at Roberta's face with the animal skull. So it's like everybody has different things which will give you a bit of pleasure and interest. So don't worry, Roberta, you don't need to find a skull. So you just find what you like.
It was very interesting. I'm not sure I'd be able to kind of come across a badger skull where I am. Although who knows?
You never know.
Yeah, I think there are badgers near to where we live, but they're very shy. Yeah. And maybe it's just as simple as bringing kind of a plant into the office, or
absolutely. So something to take care of, something to notice. Some plants will move around over time with the sun, tiny little things to notice that can really, give you those little uplifts throughout the day for you as a person, but also for anybody else who is coming to see you.
Yeah, definitely.
Lovely.
We've had team meetings outside in the sunshine and on the grass, just to enjoy the outdoor space. And we have an office that's surrounded by lovely outdoor space and social prescribing activities as well.
Fantastic.
So we're very lucky.
Super. And that's lovely. So Annie says she offers people a walk and a talk rather than the sitting in the office meeting. I think that's excellent, because where that's appropriate, if you're not form filling or discussing something more private, walking and talking can be so helpful. Brilliant. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to share? Catherine? You're okay?
I was just going to say this exact same thing that Annie's just said. I've not done any, but I've got the idea from this training.
Brilliant. So it's something to try. Absolutely. So we're all at different levels of confidence in this, that we can experiment over time. We can try things. If it doesn't work, that is absolutely okay. We've learned something, and we might want to try it again just to check that it's not working for us. But you can just take what is useful to you and in your practice. And with each person, that might be very different. But definitely stay in touch with the group, stay in touch with myself and Mary. I would love to hear of the things that you try out. And you can always use the Padlet to share your ideas. You could take, like Fiona's wasp's nest, you could take pictures of what you find and what you use as your talking pieces, and that might inspire somebody else. And will ask the ICS commissioners about having a face-to-face kind of well-being day in the summer, perhaps, where we could all come together and do some of these activities, you know, in real life, which I think would be amazing. Oh, Roberta's double thumbs up. So that's good. And Annie, yes, lots of thumbs up. Brilliant. Super. So is there anything that anyone would like to share before I finish off? No? Okay, so you'll find lots of information to go and reflect on the Padlet. That's where I'm going to put the presentation, so you can download that and use it. We're completely not precious about any of these resources, so if you think they're useful for a patient, please just go ahead and use them or adapt them, you know, take what's useful for you. And then if any questions come from this when you're trying things out with patients, do come back to me and I'll be ever so happy to help.
Thanks, Jenny.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Keep in touch, okay?
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks very much. Bye.
Jenny,
Bye.
just before you go,
Oh,
you know,
yes, Stephen.
You mentioned this Winthrop Gardens. Where is it?
It's on the outskirts of Rotherham. Can anyone give it a more specific location? It's a community gardens. I can certainly put a link on the Padlets about where it is.
Please,
there's a lovely cafe there that's open to the public. The gardens are open to the public, and they also have various support groups that use the building. It's Anne Chester is the woman who kind of pulls it all together, and there's a great she does a really great newsletter that comes out every couple of months with the activities.
Yeah, its postcode is. Do you want the postcode? Because I know the postcode.
Please. Yeah.
S66 1EE.
S66 1EE. So
it's on the edge of Wickersley before you go into Thorpe Hesley, if you know the area.
Oh, WhatsApp group. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's down a lane, so first time to find it can be quite hard.
It's past like a refuse collection place.
What was the actual name of it, Catherine? Is it
Winthrop Gardens? Winthrop. And it's open. It's just started opening again last week, and it's open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think it's 10:30 till 3.
Oh, brilliant! Because we're setting up an allotment, and it just might be somewhere for us to get some ideas from. So,
I think there's I think there is an allotment round the back. I think it's just one person that does that, but I don't know if it's their allotment. But there's a big one at the back of it.
Yeah,
that's fantastic that you're sharing that information, so you can do more of that.
Somewhere for us to visit, yeah. So thank you very much for that. Do appreciate,
Brilliant. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Bye.
Cheers.